fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego, welcoming you once again to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment. That's right, you just call me Fuego for short, and as always, I'm super stoked to have you here for a kinda Fresca Fuego review. That's right, this came out about a week or so ago, the previous weekend. I didn't see it the first weekend because I went to see that stupid 47 Meters Down sequel that Cecil and I reviewed for my other channel, The Horror Show, which is where, yes, it's got all of the subscribership and stuff, and here on my little channel that could, I ended up just, holding off on this one because I wasn't super stoked on the trailers. I thought that they looked just silly, gratuitous, and I'm just like, okay, I've seen this sort of excess and stupidity before, but I'm honestly really stoked that I got around to watching Good Boys, which is what I am here to talk to you about today. And on Enfuegotainment, I always like to do the Bueno, the Malo, and the Feo. And so just to give a little up-to-speed history about this film, it was written and directed by a couple of guys who were previously just doing writer and directorial work on The Office, as a matter of fact. So the director, this is his first feature film, and his writing partner, he also had worked on, just some stuff for The Office previously. So yeah, TV sitcom experience and not really too much else beyond that. Produced though by Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen, who, I mean, we all know have been behind tons and tons of different things at this particular point, most notably recently, lots of work by my favorite comic author, Garth Ennis. Yes, they have been behind The Boys, which is tearing stuff up on Amazon, already renewed for a second season, and then Preacher, so both of those being Garth Ennis's probably most popular properties aside from Crossed. And so yeah, but this is a foray back into producing the comedic, and really it's very accurately described by many as a younger version of Superbad, or like kind of an American Pie type, view, because it's about 6th graders, it's not about high school kids. So as opposed to going and trying to get laid, they're trying to go to a kissing party, yeah, it's a kissing party, dog. And that's where I'm gonna say these kids were legit hilarious. And I mean, the Bueno, Malo, Feo, yes, as I said just a little while ago. So the Bueno here being the fact that the kids were really genuine and believable in this, much more so than I was initially anticipating, honestly, especially from the excessive stupidity and just sex-fueled wackiness and just unengaged, just lack of understanding that, this movie really bills itself as humor-wise. But really, it hit me so much more in the feels, in its genuineness than I was necessarily anticipating. And the chemistry between these three kids is really legit, and it's believable, and it's fun, and it's charming. And I mean, as somebody who, when I grew up, I had a trio of friends, we knew each other since kindergarten, so pretty much identical dynamic here. And we, we stayed like, we called ourselves Trinity, and, these kids call themselves the Beanbag Boys. But, I mean, I had a similar dynamic kind of transpire that happens in this, where it's like, okay, your friendship starts to splinter a little bit because of the fact that, my friend Mike, he really wanted, like, he was all about chicks, and that's what he wanted, was to, date and, like, get laid to 9 Inch Nails Closer and stuff like that. And he had tons of girlfriends all through the course of our friendship and stuff. Definitely wasn't the case with me. I was more like our kid in this who, now that would be the Tremblay character that I was just talking about. The other kid, though, he's like, nah, I've been like doing music and all this other stuff, which is kind of the route that I fell into, where I wanted to, play drums and write songs and do all these other things. And so, whereas initially all three of us talked about Trinity being our band and stuff, the interest eventually just splintered away, and Mike wanted to do the well, he was much more interested in women. And then my buddy Morgan, who was Mike's cousin, the third member of the Trinity, he was definitely more so into gaming and stuff like that. And that's that's this hilarious kid who kind of in some ways steals the movie, this African American kid, and like his parents are kind of divorcing, and we find that out at the very, very beginning. And yet, I mean, he's crushed, and yet it does give some genuine laughs, but also like genuine feels in that regard as well. I was like, I don't want to Taco Tuesdays, It's really well written. It really, really is. And so I can relate to this trio of the Beanbag Boys because of the fact that I had a similar dynamic with myself and my two other friends, and how we were like inseparable and we were going to do everything together, and yet sometimes life takes us in different directions, and so that was the bueno of this movie that I was totally not expecting, is the way that it explains friendship, but yet also talks about the fact that friendship does go through peaks and valleys and stuff. And I mean, I'm still friends with Mike and Morgan to this day. I still love those two guys, and I'm in my 30s now, you know, and so we have known each other for like you know, over 20 years. It's craziness, man, you know, like, yeah, over 25 years, and I think about it, holy smokes. Anyway, but that, it's just awesome when friendship can last that long, but you have to understand that, yeah, it is probably going to have just ebb and flow and peaks and valleys, like I was just saying, and, you know, there is a message of, you know, I don't know, we got to get together for the big things, and I still do with those guys. So this is, you know, much love to my trinity of friends that I still am acquainted with to this day and still love very, very much. But yeah, so that was really at the core. This movie relies very heavily on its sex humor, and so I'll get into that in the MALO, but I mean, just the hilariousness of these kids and some of the situations that they got into. Really, it was like the little Asian kid who's having this party talking about, you know when like you French kiss a girl, and you know Tremblay's character's like on the mouth, and the kids are like, yeah, my dog, and they're just like, its innocence is what really just was so amusing about this film to me, like genuinely so funny. And the Scabs, which is this student group, it's like student coalition against bullying or something like that. So funny the way they implement those characters. And the black kid in the trio, he's so funny, where they ask him at one particular point, they're like, hey, so what are you into? And he's like, anti-drug campaigns, rules, grilled cheese, you know, stuff like that. I mean, there's just I'm not going to spoil anything, but the way he gets involved with that, you know, anti-bullying coalition, so funny. Also, a major bueno is these two older girls in high school who you've seen in the trailers. Yes, the kids run afoul of these two older girls. They're spying on them at one particular point when they're trying to learn how to kiss. They end up stealing some of their Molly. So yeah, they've got their drugs, and it's like the two girls who are after them for a good chunk of the movie. It's a hilarious dynamic, the way that they kind of have their back and forth and their interplay and stuff. It's super hilarious. Really, this movie was just so much more entertaining, so much more. It has lots of sex humor, yet it doesn't really rely on that completely for the laughs like I was anticipating. There is a lot more going on and a lot more to say, and yeah, I could say a lot more about this, but this was exceedingly more bueno and entertaining and funny in a different way than I was anticipating. But, you know, MALO, the bad that I do have to definitely get into is the fact that, yeah, it's really relying on the sex humor. And sometimes it works. Like, there is a scene where, you know, you see it in one of the trailers where they're working, the CPR doll that they're trying to figure out how to kiss with, and, you know, the one kid is like, no, you can't. Don't you remember what we said, you know, when they were talking about us in class? You have to consent, and so you have to tell her why you want to kiss her. And then, you know, she's like, you know, the kid is like, I consent. And so Tremblay's character starts kissing the sex doll, and he's like, why does she have tears on her lips? What's going on? And then you're just like, oh, it's awful to think about. So some of that stuff is super gross out, and it lands, like that bit that I just mentioned, but then there's others where it's just like beating a red-headed dead horse with the sex jokes, and it's funny to a degree because of the character's innocence and because of the fact that, yeah, this isn't super bad in that regard. You know, or American Pie in that regard, where it's just like, it's the innocence of the sex jokes in here. It's funny to a degree, but after a while, it's too much, and not every bit lands is really what it boils down to. But I mean, it's really for the first like half to 2/3 of the film where you get the extent of that MALO, and where it's just too much and stuff. And really, for me, when the humor was not relying too heavily on that, I just found it so much more, you know, heartwarming, engaging, and amusing than I was anticipating. So really, I have so much less MALO to really harp on with regards to this than I was honestly anticipating. And so I'll just jump right into the feo, the ugly, and just say, yeah, some of the jokes are pretty gross out. This film definitely has the ugly earned R rating with some of those scenarios, like the one that I just described with the kissing doll and everything. So some of this humor is really really pretty gross, man, I gotta say. And I mean, you see a good chunk of it in the trailers, you know, with the swing and with, you know, so much of that other stuff. So, I mean, some of the gross out, especially, is not for the faint of heart, man. So you just have to go in expecting that, and yet, really, it still wasn't as gross out, like, as constantly as the trailers led me to believe. Once again, I'm circling back to the bueno, even here when I'm mentioning the ugliness of some of the humor, because of the fact that this film had just a lot more going on and a lot more depth than I was honestly anticipating. And out of out of 5 Fuego Fireballs, I'm actually going to give this 4. This is a 4 out of 5. This is a certified Fuego film. I did not think I was going to come in and say that. I was going to probably, I was expecting maybe 2 to 3 out of 5, but this was 4 out of 5 for me. This was a humorous and heartwarming film when I wasn't really anticipating it was going to have that sort of silver lining to it. I thought it was just going to be strict gross out, forgettable, whatever, but I've been thinking about this movie after seeing it. I honestly might even go see it a second time with that AMC weekly pass if I don't have something else that I have just that urgency to check out, because at this point in August, when you've seen all the big summer hits, and that's really all that's still left in the theater, and you've seen everything already, there's few things besides Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that I've this summer really just felt that desire to go and see a second time. This is one that I was talking with my lady about, and I was like, I didn't necessarily think you would find any humor in this initially, but and especially being good boys, you know, from a boy's perspective and everything, you know, it's like, oh, this movie's probably going to appeal primarily to, you know, older guys, you know, and because this is definitely not a film for the age demographic that it allegedly has portrayed on screen. This is not a movie that I think 6th graders should see, but boy, if I was in 6th grade, would I have a hell of a funny time watching this. I mean, but hey, South Park paved the way for stuff like this in my estimation, and yet it is definitely much more of the offensive variety when you have, actual kids, you know, in these situations. But that little Asian kid having the kissing party, my God, he steals every single scene he's in, and he's so flippin' hilarious, man. And all the kids in this are really great, especially the girl who's just like, oh my God, that's the blah blah blahest I've ever seen, and she just overreacts to everything, from the kissing party to there's just so much more going on here than I was anticipating. So I'm gonna leave it at that and say a grande gracias, extend that to everybody. I've been Jaime En Fuego. You can find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube, where I've been doing all kinds of cool coverage. Most recently, I went bonkers for the Star Wars Mandalorian trailer this past weekend. D23 was going down, which is Disney's convention where they talk about all of their upcoming properties, and they gave all those deets about their upcoming Disney Plus streaming service that I will most definitely be shelling out for. I know you can do $6.99 a month, which is astoundingly cheap, at least for now. They also have a bundle service where you can go $12.99, and you also get your Hulu and ESPN Plus. So I think that's what I'll probably upgrade to, because of the fact that, man, I'm already spending like $6.99 for Hulu as it is. Why the hell not? I like that sports, go team. Yeah, that stuff is fun. But yeah, that trailer reaction for The Mandalorian is up, as well as all kinds of Star Wars coverage from earlier in this year. And yeah, I do at least one review every week, sometimes more. Some of my favorites this past year have most definitely been, oh boy, it's been lots of stuff. I thought Aladdin was way better than I anticipated, as was The Lion King. Reviews for Booksmart, reviews for, Wild Rose was one of my favorite movies of this entire year. I recently reviewed that. Blinded by the Light, the Bruce Springsteen film. There's tons of other stuff. I'm about to also film my review for Loose, which is a small indie drama, which is in limited release in a few different areas. And so I also want to see the Peanut Butter Falcon, I think it's called. That's another indie that is getting a lot of buzz that I will be reviewing sometime soon. But if you would like spectacular coverage, the scarific stuff, that's right, you can find yours truly on the Horror Show channel, youtube.com/The Horror Show channel, doing trailer reactions, all kinds of rad status, scarific stuff, and yeah, film reviews, book reviews, comic reviews, television reviews, reviews galore of all of that scary stuff. So lastly, I have to mention that every Monday evening, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, I am so very humbled and honored to be a part of Show Business on Willis Screedia's YouTube channel, which is my dude CP, and we also have Lindsay, who jumps on there, and the three of us talk about weekend box office, office. We also look ahead to the upcoming week, and we have some discussion, palaver, for all you Side King fans out there, all about the news of the past week. So I look forward to more reviews coming at y'all soon. I extend that gracias once more, and until the real of Ka comes around once more, I shall say hasta luego, cinemigos, but I am hopeful that we get to share more of this film discussion sooner rather than later. Until then, peace out.